Well, I'm joined now by Jobob Taeleifi, a Turning Point USA contributor. Thank you so much, Jobob, for joining us here on the program. I know that you were incredibly close to Charlie Kirk. He was somewhat of a mentor to you. How are you doing? Just talk us through how you and your other colleagues at Turning Point are feeling in these moments.
It's nothing short of complete and total devastation and heartbreak. And as the hours tick by since we learned of the tragic news, I think more perspective is being drawn in, which only has made it worse for a lot of us because I know that yes, there's tragic immediately, but what's also tragic is the fact that we don't get to see what Charlie could have become. Love him or hate him, this guy was a superstar in media, in communication, and by the age of 31 had been able to put together an organization that honestly dominated American politics. And it is a shame and a tragedy that we won't be able to get to see what he could have been in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. And as you get more perspective and you think about it just a little bit more, unfortunately it hasn't gotten better. And I think the urgency to carry the mantle that he was carrying becomes more and more a priority in all of us here at Turning Point USA, as well as the conservative movement abroad.
Yeah, Joe Bob, as you say, I mean, other than Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk really was viewed as perhaps the most successful conservative political personality in the United States. What kind of climate of fear do you think this creates now that, people on both sides can't express or won't express their views or would be worried about expressing their views when we see these kinds of political assassinations and a rise of these sorts of political assassinations in the United States?
I don't mean to sound crass at all, but it's irrelevant. Especially on the conservative side, the fear component is irrelevant. I think I stand with all of the conservative, influence, all of the political leaders in the conservative movement. We will be undeterred by any sort of fear that is injected into the system. We will stand strong on what we believe in. Charlie knew that and would have wanted us to do exactly that. And as far as the political violence go, it's abhorrent, and nobody should tolerate this, and we should all condemn it roundly. But as far as the capacity for fear to stifle the engagement of the conservative community, it will be irrelevant. It won't be a factor in any way, shape, or form.
Um, in many ways, and we've talked about this on the program, Charlie Kirk very much was the driving force of MAGA youth. Just talk us through the work that you did with him at Turning Point USA, and especially in the drive to get Donald Trump re-elected, because he had, thousands of activists working, door knocking, canvassing throughout that election campaign period.
Yeah, I mean, without getting too into the details, it is many people saw Charlie as a talk show host. They saw him as a guy who went to college campuses and debated. But the layers go so deep into what he was doing, the organization that he built. He has the USA faction that focuses on the ideology, and he's got the action faction that focuses on the political aspect of it. There was a grassroots game. There is a grassroots effort. There is a ground game in all of the major swing states. But as far as Charlie specifically and personally, he was the best communicator of ideas that I've ever seen, that I've ever been around. I had the privilege and opportunity to tour the country with him for about 3 years. I would open the events and he would come in. And generally speaking, I think in most cases, opening speakers would do their part and then they would just leave. I couldn't leave those events because what he was saying was so engaging and enlightening and thought-provoking and interesting. And even if you didn't agree with it, it was just the way that he was able to communicate was unlike any other. Unfortunately, I don't know that we have anybody, but I do know that en masse, I think the movement will again carry on what he was trying to do, both on the engagement in the ideological side and on the political side.
Joe Bob, I have about a minute and a half left, but I wanted to ask you about these calls now for vengeance.
disavow, completely and utterly disavow vengeance of any kind against people who disagree with you. This was Charlie's entire point, his whole goal. And right and left should agree on this. Public civil discourse is going away, and that is not good. His entire goal was to go to places and engage with people. He would give you a microphone, and if you disagreed, he would let you to the front of the line. In no way, shape, or form is that normal in what any sort of system that he was accused of, specifically "quote unquote" fascism. So, in terms of how we respond by continuing the message. Vengeance has no place in the conservative movement, outside of bringing the people to justice who are responsible and continuing the message that Charlie was pushing.
Jobob Taeleifi, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme.